Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Derek's podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Corinne Kellerhaus, who is a fifth grade teacher at Iroquois Community Schools in Des Plaines. She's going to be here to break down the differences between a year-round school and a traditionally scheduled school. So let's introduce our guest here.
Hi, thanks for having me, Derek.
No problem. So first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about how a year-round school is different from a traditionally scheduled school?
Okay, so the biggest difference between a year round school and a traditional schedule is the start time. So we started school actually on July 8th. And typically, the way the schedule runs is we teach 10 weeks and then we are off on what we call intersession for 3 weeks. So typically, our first quarter, for example, would run from like beginning, middle of July, and then it will wrap up kind of like mid September, and then we have our first intersession break on like those last 2 weeks of September, usually the first week of October. So it's kind of a nice little break when everyone else is getting started in the end of August, beginning of September. We are wrapping up that first quarter. So that's kind of the biggest difference. But that's kind of how the schedule works then throughout the entire year. So we teach 10 weeks and then we're off for 3 weeks.
Okay, great. So let's backtrack here a little bit. How long have you been at ICS with the year-round schedule?
So I've been teaching now at Iroquois for 5 years. But I believe that the school has been year-round for almost 20 years.
Is this the only year-round school in the district, or are all the schools running on the same schedule?
It is the only year-round school in the district, and we're actually also a kindergarten through 8th grade school as well. So that also makes us unique among all the different schools in the district.
Interesting. Well, let me start with the first kind of obvious question. Do you think the schedule benefits the students more than a traditional schedule or not?
I think it does benefit them. I think it's nice because it gives them kind of like a mental break. First of all, like just because, I guess just to start, this is all I've ever like. This is the only type of school I've had my teaching career at. The only when I've been on the traditional calendar when I attended school, but this is the first time I've ever taught with the year-round calendar, and I think that it does benefit them. I find that we don't really have to go back and do as much review at the beginning of the year. We tend to, spend the first couple of days kind of reviewing just like kind of basic skills, and then we can really dive into our curriculum pretty quickly. But I think it's beneficial. It gives the kids kind of a break after, they've been learning for 10 weeks, and they kind of take a short little break, and we reconvene shortly after. So I think it's beneficial for them.
Okay, I guess along those lines, going off of that, how do you and the teachers feel about being on this different schedule? Whereas you mentioned you do go back in early to mid July. Granted, you get the breaks, the 3 week breaks sporadically throughout the year. But first of all, I guess what's your feeling about teaching at a school like this? Is it something you prefer, or would you rather be at a school that's on a traditional schedule?
I think, like when I think about my schedule, going back in July, honestly, it's kind of hard. Like especially knowing like I have a lot of like friends that are teachers, and just like my fiance's a teacher, so it's like it's kind of hard. Like everyone's in summer break and now I'm back in school, but I also feel like I really enjoy those breaks instead of having like everything compiled in one break, all those weeks all at once. It gets kind of portioned out throughout the year, and so I think that's kind of nice instead of having it all at once. I love summer. I would love to have a nice summer day, but at the same time, like I also really value those days in September that I have.
Now, as far as from speaking with your colleagues and such, how do people at the school, the other teachers, feel about the schedule in your opinion?
I think everybody really likes it. There's teachers that have been there, for over 20 years. They really like the schedule. And I think a lot of like teachers that are parents, they say they really like the schedule because like they start earlier, and then when like their kids start school, like they're able to like go to their first days of school, like they're able to take some time off, and like when we have our September break, they're able to bring their kids to school and just kind of have more of like a regular schedule like with their children, so it kind of has like that benefit in a sense too.
Oh, that's great. And you might have already alluded to it, but what, in your opinion, would be the biggest advantage or disadvantage to attending a year-round school?
It's a good question.
And you could do this for either you personally, the teachers at the school, or the students.
I mean, personally for me, I love to travel. And so one benefit I think is like it does allow me to travel beyond just like that summer break time. Like if I would like to travel in September or October, like I have that opportunity. I have a little bit more like flexibility, I feel like, to do things like that, because I have my 3 weeks in September, I have my 3 weeks in December, I have my 3 weeks in March, so it's a little bit more like flexible in that sense. Um, Disadvantage, I feel like we are sometimes, because of the rest of the district is like the traditional calendar, I feel like we're kind of forgotten sometimes in our district, just because um, we've started already, or like sometimes like the district, I feel like we're always like either ahead, or it seems like the district is like pushing out new initiatives, and like we just kind of are thrown into them because we start so early, whereas everyone else has like time to like learn about it. They've got the whole summer to read up on like our new wonders curriculum or whatever it may be, like and we, on the other hand, they introduce it and then we just have to get going with it.
Yeah, I can see how that would definitely be a disadvantage as far as the curriculum. Um, was there anything else you would like to add? I think we got to all my burning questions today.
um no, I not think so. Like, I mean, I really like the year-round schedule. I think it's very unique. And to be honest, when I first started like at the school, I was kind of like nervous. Like, am I not gonna like this? Like, is teaching in the summer? It's such a crazy concept, but I think it is really great, and I really do value like those 3 week breaks. I think it's a good break for the kids. I think it's a good break for the teachers. And something else I did like forget to add, like during our intersession breaks, the 3 week breaks, my school also offers like intersession camp, or like enrichment classes, or reteaching classes. So there's lots of like opportunities. It's not just like 3 weeks off and the school shuts down. It's actually like functioning, and there's a ton of things happening there. So like, for example, the camps are planned by staff members, and we as teachers can like volunteer to work those, and so that's really nice. It's a great opportunity, and there's also classes offered for kids that maybe need reteaching or enrichment, so things like that. So there's lots of opportunities beyond just like the year-round calendar at our school.
Oh, that's great. I think we got to all that I was going to get to today. Appreciate you being here today. Special thank you to Corinne for your time. And that's been this edition on Derek's podcast. Thank you for joining us today. All right, so after listening to the podcast, reviewing it, I thought the audio quality wasn't great. Definitely good enough to, if you were gonna show your class something, if you're doing a flipped learning video, I think it would be fine, but definitely could have been much improved by a microphone. I had to be cognizant of where I was sitting, because I did it the first time with it sitting in front of me, and my interviewee, the sound wasn't really getting picked up that well, so what I did was we kind of sat near each other, doing this on an iPad. I put it in the middle, so I think that definitely helped. As far as doing it the first time, it was a lot better, but still the audio quality wasn't great. So I do think for $50-$60 it would be worthwhile investing in a microphone. If I were going to do podcasts, for my class frequently, or be making flip learning videos relatively frequently, I think it would be a worthwhile investment. It was definitely serviceable from what I was doing on the iPad. It wasn't terrible quality, but it could noticeably be enhanced. So I think, again, if I was going to do this frequently for my class or spend any amount of time doing videos, definitely a worthwhile purchase for $50 or $60 for a microphone, like I wrote about in my discussion post this week.